Hey there. Today I wanted to do a quick run through of how Stripe Checkout works and how you can use it in your Rails app. If you're not familiar, Stripe Checkout is a really great way to offload a lot of your payment flow into Stripe, where you're not having to write a lot of the custom code. And if you've got very simple, straightforward payment requirements, I think it's a really great way to go. So I'll show you a really quick way that I came up with it in my app. I think it could be a really useful example if you're looking to do something like this. So let's get started. Um, as you can see in here, I'm in the Stripe docs, and what we're looking for here is this under the checkout section as sessions, right? So we're creating a Stripe checkout session. And really all this API is looking for is a couple of values. Where do we go if the payment is successful? Where do we go if for some reason the customer doesn't complete the flow, if they hit cancel? And then what are they buying, right? So we can provide light items here and quantities. And then there's this mode section, which we don't have to hit on too much, but no, there's a couple of different things you can do here. You can do checkouts for basic one-time purchases. You can do for subscriptions. And there's also a cool way where you can pass it the setup parameter, and you can have customers manage and save payment methods for use later. So we're going to take this here and we're going to go over to my Rails app, and I'll show you how we got it in there. So what I decided to do is create a checkouts controller. So, and really all we're looking for here is a way to allow the user to create a request to generate this session, right? So I have a create method on here, which is a post request. And all I'm looking for is for them to tell me essentially what are they going to buy, right? So I set up these parameters where they're going to pass me the items. And we're going to do a little bit of formatting on that and then actually create the session. So this is the similar code that we saw in the API docs, but we are going to pass this root URL. It's important to note this, make sure you do add the underscore URL. A lot of times in our controllers and when we're making our views, we use the underscore path helpers. And since we're going out to one of Stripe's servers and we're going to come back, we actually need to provide a full URL. So make sure you use the underscore URL on your examples here. I wanted to go ahead and have some way in the interface to say, hey, like everything's good. So I'm passing this success parameter over. And like I said up here, we're kind of doing a little massaging of our parameters and passing it into line items. And one other thing I want to throw out here too, and this is new for Rails 7, but normally when we're writing our own controllers, we're going to redirect to somewhere in our own app. But you can imagine if for some reason, there was any kind of vulnerability or things that can set you up for where if you're not expecting it, redirecting to a outside domain could be undesirable. So starting with Rails 7, if you're going to redirect outside of your own app, out of your own domain, you need to use this allow other host method. So that could be a gotcha if you're not familiar, because like I said, up until Rails 7, this was not a thing. So once we have this done, that's really the only API call we need. It's like I said, this is very simple, and they've done a great job of making it easy for us. We now are going to look over here in our view, right? So the view can be whatever you make it, right? In my example, I decided to keep things simple. I am only selling one thing. I'm selling a t-shirt. And I decided to use the button to method, right? It's a really cool way to make a concise form. And we're going to post to our checkouts path. And again, along the same lines of the redirect issue that we talked about in the controller, on the button to here, we're also going to want to do data turbo false. And like I said, it's for similar reasons. JavaScript doesn't really want to, specifically, I believe it's the fetch API, doesn't like to redirect you outside to a third party. So we do need to turn turbo off here. And really, the meat of it here is passing over a price, so a Stripe price ID and a quantity. So if you're not familiar, products and prices is kind of the newer, I think it's been around a little bit, but the Stripe API over the year has gone through some iterations. The most recent iteration of that is you have products who have many prices. So for our example, we need to have a price ID. In my example, I didn't make anything in terms of product management in the app, but I am working on a course that'll go into a lot of detail on how you can make an interface in your own app to create products and prices and manage that so you can minimize or eliminate the need to even go into the Stripe dashboard. But for the example here, or possibly even for the example or the scenario you're trying to solve for, going into the Stripe interface might actually be perfectly acceptable. And that their interface has grown and has become very useful over the years. So that's what we're going to do here in an example today. So over in the Stripe dashboard, we're going to go to the products tab and we're going to create our new product. And we're going to put in as a t-shirt. And I will recommend, particularly if you're using checkout, that you're going to want to upload an image here. You'll see when we trigger the flow where this shows up, but it's a really nice thing to add in here to kind of enhance the experience, if you will. So we'll upload an image. And you could provide a description here. And the main thing here is now the price. So we're going to do our $20. It is a one-time, but like I said, this here is where you can think if you're making a SaaS product or something like that, you could have a different reoccurring costs that are monthly or annual or whatever. But in the case of a real world good here, we're just doing a one-time cost. So save the product. And when we're done, we'll see down here, this is what we want, right? We want this price ID. So we can click copy. And we can now replace my placeholder here with the price. And really, that's all there is to it. We're set up now to support and fully collect a payment for our t-shirt. So if we go over to our app, reload, just to make sure we have all of the latest API and the identifiers and things, we can click our button. And we are redirected over to Stripe Checkout. And here's the example here where I said, I mentioned it's good to put your image. This image is being pulled from what we uploaded into Stripe, and as well as the description. And we can then fill it out. Put our details in. Don't need one password this time, but thank you. And we can use our dummy card that Stripe gives us. Again, worth mentioning, if you're using checkout here, it's really great because for our European friends or places where there might be a payment method that requires a redirect or an additional authentication step, the CSA, Secure Customer Authentication, this page is going to handle all that for us, which makes it very, very nice that we can just kind of get that functionality for free. So we're done. Put in our code. One other thing I'll mention, because I've had customers over the years be confused about this. This is a cool feature where effectively, if you're familiar with Shopify or ShopPay or things of that nature, where you can check this, and this effectively allows your customer to save their credentials with Stripe and check out with these credentials on any other site that Stripe is used on. So it's cool, but in my experience, sometimes customers are confused by this. They think that maybe they're saving it just for on your site and things like that. So you can decide if it's right for you. Oftentimes I'll turn it off, but it is a nice feature for certain customers or people who are interested in that. So we'll hit pay, process. If we're good, we'll get some green here and we'll be redirected back to our app. And you can see here, this is why I leverage that URL parameter here. So I just had some conditional code here in my view where I'm presenting an alert, right? So this is very basic, but I think you get the idea of where you could go with utilizing these parameters. So we can't, in the way that, traditionally, if we were all within our Rails app, we would be using our own controllers. We could use flash messages and things like that. But in this case, since we're kind of doing that dance, that handoff back and forth between Stripe and our app, this is a nice, alternative, right? So wanted to keep this brief, but I think Stripe Checkout is a very cool feature. And if you have very straightforward, simple payment needs, I think this is a really great way to go. Thanks.